Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel for another episode of the route learning series recorded within Train Simulator. In this episode, I'm going to be driving on the freeware Fen Line route, which is available from 4 Aspect Simulations and simulates the route between Ely and Kings Lynn. I've posted a link to where you can get this route in the video description, just because I think this is a very high quality freeware route, pretty much up to payware standards, so I do recommend checking it out and getting it if you have all of the assets required. The scenario that I'm driving is one which comes with the route, and set in 2009, I'm operating the final leg of train 1 Tango 22, which is the 1744 service from London King's Cross through to Kings Lynn, departing away from Ely at 1856. Stops along the route will include Littleport, Downham Market, Watlington, and finally Kings Lynn, with a total journey distance of around 26.5 miles. The train that I'm driving on this journey is the Class 365 electric multiple unit. The Class 365s were constructed between 1994 and 1995 by ABB at Holgate Road Carriage Works in York, and they're part of the network of family of units. A total of 41 of these units were constructed, with 1 unit being scrapped after the Potters Bar rail crash in 2002. Each unit is formed of 4 coaches, and the length of each unit is around 82 metres, with the total weight being around 151.6 tonnes, and they have a power output of 1,684 horsepower per 4-coach unit, or 1,256 kilowatts. The Class 365s have a maximum speed of 100 miles per hour, though the maximum speed limit for this journey will be 90 miles per hour, and they run on the 25 kilovolt 50 Hz AC overhead electrification system. Though originally designated as dual voltage units, they only operated with 1 system of traction current pickup. The first 16 Class 365 units were supplied with a third rail shoe for pickup from the 750 volts DC third rail system used in the southern region, but these shoes were later removed. I've just jumped into the cab of the Class 365 here at Ely Station, and because we're right in the middle of the journey, I've actually pre-set up the cab ready for departure, much like it would be in real life, though I am just going to put the reversing handle back into the neutral position, just in case the driver's safety device goes off. So there's not really a start-up procedure to go through here, but I just wanted to quickly talk about the controls. So just to the left-hand side, we have a combined traction and brake controller, which is a pretty standard one for British electric multiple units. As you can see, it's currently in the full service position, so as you move it towards the off position, then the brakes will release, and you've got 4 notches of power below the off button, and we've got a standard 3-step brake above the off button. So generally I'm going to try and not brake above step 2. Occasionally you might need to go into step 3 if you feel you're not slowing down quick enough. And I find step 1 just doesn't slow you down quite quick enough, so I think step 2 is a good sort of medium balance, because you've always got more brake force available to you if necessary. Just above that, we've got there the brake gauge, so you can see the right hand needle there currently pointing to around 3.5, so that's showing you how hard the brakes are applied, and when that needle is pointing at 0, the brakes are fully released. If we continue around the cab here, you can see there you've got an acceleration rate and brake rate bar. So the acceleration rate bar goes green when we're accelerating, and the brake rate goes red when we're decelerating with the brakes on. So that's just showing you sort of what's going on with the acceleration and with the dynamic braking system as well, because this train uses a mixture of air and dynamic braking. Next to that, we've got the speedometer measured in miles per hour. As you can see there, we've got a marker indicating the maximum speed for this train of 100 miles per hour. And if we continue around the cab, you can see there you've got a speed set active button. So I just knocked the microphone with my hand for a second, if you heard that. But yeah, we've got a speed set active button at the bottom, which is currently set off. Now, I'm not going to use the speed set on this journey, but if you look at the triangular bug on the outside of the speedometer, that shows you what position the speed set is currently in, so I'm just going to move that now. So say you move that to 50, then it's like a cruise control system, and it should hold us at around 50 miles per hour, but I'm just going to drive manually on this journey and maintain the speed myself, just because I find it a bit more interesting. And I know certainly like with Class 375s and 77s with Southeastern and Southern, although they have a speed set, it is out of use and they don't use it, so I don't know if that's the case with Class 365s or not, but if you do know about that, then please let me know in the comments. I should also mention with this train, currently we're in driver only operated mode, and you can see to the left hand side here there's a front doors release all and rear doors release button, and we've got the same for this side as well for the right hand side doors, so we've got one for the left and one for the right. And so when you stop at a station, in addition to pressing T, you also need to click on the all button to release all the doors on the train. Now I'm just looking around here now. Somewhere around here we have a horn, which is a two-tone horn, controllable with the spacebar and the B key. I'm just trying to look for that now, because unlike in the Class 68 video, I really do want to actually find it. And I just saw it there right in the middle of the cab, just on the side, so I can zoom into that now. So yeah, that's the horn control, the two-tone horn, which is controllable with spacebar and the B key. So we are now set up ready for departure, so let's just take another look outside the train and then depart out on our journey towards King's Lynn. Departing away from Ely, the speed limit was 50 miles per hour, though it's quickly dropped now to 35 miles per hour, with around 5.6 miles to go to our first stop, which is Littleport. And also we departed away on a single yellow aspect, so I do have to assume that the next signal is red until I can see otherwise. So I've just shut off the power for now, and I'm allowing the train to coast at 35 miles per hour. Hello again, driver. 1 Lima 48 is running late, so you may be held before Ely North Junction. So yeah, we are following another train just until we reach Ely North Junction, and then we should be clear pretty much all of the way through to Ely. The speed limit is now increasing to 60 miles per hour, so we can accelerate towards that around the area of the second overhead gantry after passing the speed post. So we're just reaching that second gantry now. But again, I do have to bear in mind that we are currently travelling under single yellow signals, and the next signal is around 0.6 miles away from this signal here. So just accelerated up to about 40, and now I'm just going to shut off the power once again and allow the train to coast, and then I'll start slowing down as we approach the next signal, just to ensure that we don't end up passing a signal at danger. So I can now see that signal ahead is displaying a red aspect, so I'm just bringing our speed down to hopefully bring us to a gentle stop in front of the signal, though hopefully it might clear before we actually reach it, so we'll see how that goes. And the signal has now cleared to green, so we can now accelerate up towards the speed limit here. So the speed limit is dropping to 50 miles per hour just after the signal, and I'm not going to accelerate above 50 for now, though it is very quickly jumping to 60 miles per hour just after we've crossed the junction. And immediately as we've crossed this point just here, the speed limit is now increasing to 60 miles per hour, and it looks like the rear of the train will be cleared, so we can just continue accelerating up towards 60. I've just cut the power back for a moment to ensure that we don't break that speed limit, and the speed limit is now further increasing to 80 miles per hour. At the 80 mile per hour speed post, we had around 3.8 miles to go. As we now get closer to 80 miles per hour, I need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to try and maintain the speed here, so I'm just cutting back to notch 2 of power now, and I'll cut back further to notch 1 as we reach 80. As you can now see the housing approaching in the distance there, we've got around 1.4 miles to go. What I'm looking out for now is a whistle post and then a 40 warning, and then a second whistle post. So I'm going to cut off the power and allow the train to coast. The warning is for a speed limit that comes into force after our stop. Though there is a 60 limit which comes into force just before our stop, so we've just passed that 40 warning now. I've shut off the power to allow the train to coast, and I'm going to apply the brakes just as we've passed this signal. If this signal is single yellow, then we are in fact cleared into Littleport station. So here's the 60 mile per hour speed limit that I mentioned that comes into force just before the stop, and then there is a 40 limit that comes into force just after the stop. So I'm bringing our speed down quite nicely now, and I'm aiming to stop here at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. And as you can see, it's a fairly short platform, so I don't really recommend entering the platform much faster than about 20 miles per hour. And we should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing away from Littleport, the speed limit here is 60 miles per hour, though soon dropping to 40 miles per hour, with just over 10 miles to go to the next stop, which is Downham Market. And I should also mention that I did turn on the driver reminder appliance just after I stopped there, but I didn't actually record myself turning it on, and that's just because we had an adverse signal just ahead of us here. And the adverse signal was protecting a single line section that we're now going to be entering, and we're now going to be single track pretty much all of the way to the next stop. So as we're reaching 40 miles per hour, and now shutting off the power just to allow the train to coast at this point. And then just after we've crossed the point here onto the single track section, the speed limit will then be increasing up to 90 miles per hour, which I have to say seems a very fast speed limit for a single track section, but certainly I do like driving at this sort of speed. 90 plus is really my ideal dream speed for driving in Train Simulator. So just accelerating for a moment, and now we've got a neutral section here, so I'll just cut off the power just until we've passed through that neutral section, and now I'm going to increase the power once again to accelerate up towards line speed. So we've now got an AWS warning with a cross sign just after it, which means that the AWS is for the opposite direction, and we can ignore that warning. And as we pass the AWS warning, we've got around 8.8 miles to go. As we get up towards 90 miles per hour, they need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to maintain that speed. So as we get to about 87, 88 miles per hour, I'll just cut back to notch 2, and then as we hit 90, I'll cut back further to notch 1. So this is, I think it's the first curve since we've entered the single track section. At the end of this curve, we've got 6.4 miles to go. We're now coming up on a right-hand curve. At the end of this curve, we've got around 5 miles to go, and around 1.7 miles to go to an upcoming 75 mile per hour speed limit. As we reach this crossing now, I'm just going to shut off the power and allow the train to coast at this point. We've got around 1.3 miles to go to that upcoming 75 limit at present. And at the next crossing, so not the one that we just passed, but the following crossing, we've got just over half a mile to go to that 75 limit. And I'm going to apply the brakes as we approach the next curve. As the next right-hand curve, the 75 limit comes into force just before that curve. So I'm just making a step 1 brake application now, which should bring our speed down quite nicely. And again, at 75 miles per hour, we need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to maintain that speed. As the speed limit just dropped to 75 miles per hour, we had around 3.3 miles to go. Just crossed there a rather rusty looking underbridge, and at that point we had 2.2 miles to go, and the next landmark will be the next signal with around 1.4 miles to go. So we've now got around 1.4 miles to go. As we see the next signal, I'm going to shut off the power and just allow the train to coast. And then, just as we pass the signal, I'll then brake between steps 1 and 2 to slow us down in time for our stop at Downham Market. So I made an initial step 1 brake application, though I will increase that braking if necessary. In fact, I think I might need to, as I think I can see the stop coming up just ahead. But let's brake a bit harder than I was before, and hopefully that should bring our speed down in time. Thankfully, the brakes on the Class 365 are very, very good, so you can slow down quite quickly. Just going to temporarily up to step 3 braking. I really don't want to be coming into that platform faster than about 30. Now I've reduced back down to step 2. And here at Downham Market, we need to stop at the forecast stop sign around halfway along the platform. In fact, you can see the, I think it's the mirror there, just on the left-hand side, just past the forecast stop sign. I think we might have overshot very slightly, but we're stopping in close to the right place. Departing away from Downham Market, the starting speed limit was still 75 miles per hour, with around 4.8 miles to go to the next stop, which is Watlington. At this upcoming signal, we've got around 4.4 miles to go, and once again, as we reach 75 miles per hour, I need to go between notches 1 and 2 of power to maintain the speed. There's a foam mast just coming up on the left hand side now, which is just before a crossing with some bungalows that you can see on the right hand side there. And at this point we've got around 1.2 miles to go. I'm going to idle the power just as we approach the next signal. At that signal we've got around 0.9 miles to go. So now I'm looking out just for a very small fence which is next to the tracks on both sides, and I'm going to use that as a braking point. So I'm just looking out for that now. And it's just coming up now. You can see two small fences there on either side of the track. So at this point, initially this time I'm going to do a step 2 brake application to make sure that our speed does come off quick enough without having to use a step 3 brake application. Here at Watlington, again, it's quite a short platform, so we don't really want to enter the platform much faster than about 20 to 25 miles per hour. And I want to stop here at the S sign, which is right at the end of the platform. And we should now be stopped in just about the right place. Departing away from Watlington, the speed limit is soon dropping to 40 miles per hour as we're about to cross a junction and enter another single track section, and we've got around 6 miles to go to the next and final stop, which is Kings Lynn. So I'm just cutting the power back now as we're reaching 40 miles per hour just to allow the train to coast at this point. And then I'll increase the power once again just after we've crossed the junction, where the speed limit is once again going back up to 90 miles per hour. We now have another AWS warning with an X indicating that it's for the opposite direction, so we can ignore it. And at this point we've got around 5 miles to go. And once again, as we reach 90 miles per hour, it's between notches 1 and 2 of power, so I'm just preparing now to pull back to notch 2 and then cut back to notch 1 as we reach 90. So you can see there just on the right hand side an electric substation just as we pass a crossing here. So at that crossing we've got 3.3 miles to go, with 1.5 miles to go to an upcoming 70 mile per hour speed limit. As we reach this next signal, I'm now shutting off the power to allow the train to coast, and I'll brake for the upcoming 70 limit just as we pass under the power lines that you can see coming up just ahead. So I made a step 1 brake application while passing under those power lines, and that brought our speed down quite nicely. The speed limit's now dropping to 70 with 0.8 miles to go to an upcoming 30 mile per hour speed limit and 1.8 miles to go to our stop. So we've just passed the warning for the upcoming 30 mile per hour speed limit. I'm going to brake for that limit at the end of this right hand curve. So we've now got down to 30 miles per hour in time. I'm just going to allow the train to coast at this point, but I will give us a little bit of power if necessary. So we've now got around 0.6 miles to go to an upcoming 25 mile per hour speed limit. And I'm going to brake for that speed limit, approaching the signal at the end of this left-hand curve. So just slowed down to 25 miles per hour as I saw that signal. There is a further drop in the speed limit down to 15 miles per hour coming up in a moment, and we need to be down to 15 for a ground signal just before some points coming up in a moment. So the speed limit's now dropped to 225. I can just see that ground signal ahead now, so we need to be down to 15 in time for that. And now we can coast at 15 miles per hour, approaching King's Lynn station, and then I'll slow to 10 miles per hour as we're entering the platform, and try and stop just as the buffers disappear at the bottom of the window. And so if we stop here, we should now be stopped in just about the right place. And so here we are, arrival at King's Lynn. I just wanted to say thank you very much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. And also for the latest channel updates, you can find me on Facebook with the link to my Facebook page in the video description. And if you'd like to support this channel on Patreon to help me purchase more DLC and produce a wider range of videos, then please see my Patreon link, which is also in the video description. And of course, don't forget, I've also put in the description where you can download this route if you'd like to give this a try for yourself. Once again, thank you for watching.